Stress around the world affects millions of people, and within the UK work environment alone costs the UK economy £3.4 billion per year, with over 11 million days lost in work in 2015 and 2016. 53% of students reported that their stress levels increased since starting university, and common causes include debt and financial worries, exam and coursework pressure, balancing study with other commitments and relationships. As we know, certain amounts of stress can be good for the body. It can shift you off the sofa and into the library when you've got an assignment due the next day and you've not been bothered because you're too engrossed in a new Netflix series. However, there's a fine line between stress being good for you and stress being detrimental to your health. This fine line can be explained with the inverted U theory or the Yerkes-Dodson law, in which your body needs a certain amount of stress to function and thrive, but too much or too little and your performance starts to suffer. It's arguably the best years of your life being at university, but for myself there was a little niggle in my head that wouldn't go away that for me turned out to be quite serious. I felt very low, I struggled to socialise and I felt tired and achy all the time, and for me life was one big headache. For the whole of my third year I put it down to partying too hard, having a physically demanding job and training hard. However, when the extreme nervousness and severe anxiety crept into my work and home life, I knew this was serious. Even if I wasn't visibly stressed or rushed, I felt a severe, dull ache in my head all the time, from clenching and grinding my teeth subconsciously. I was no good as a friend, and I was no good as a person. Stress has the ability to ruin people's lives, and if not acted on promptly, can prove why it's the nation's #1 modern-day killer, and this is really no joke. To gauge a further understanding, I looked further into stress, where I found some fantastic TED Talks. One by Daniel Levitin describes severe prolonged stress as a cloud, and the more stressed you become, the bigger the cloud in your brain gets, and therefore under stress you're not going to be at your best and things can really start to spiral. So, what does he mean by stress? By breaking down exactly what happens in the body when you are stressed. So the stress response begins in your head when a stimulus is released. This then sends a threat message to the hypothalamus, which in turn tells the sympathetic nervous system to protect you from the stress attack. The nervous system increases heart rate, constricts some blood vessels and dilates others, and slows down the intestinal movements and prompts glands to flood the system with cortisol. If this alarm is set off too often, it can do serious physical damage. When too much cortisol is released, it can have effects within the hippocampus, which can cause disturbed sleep, mood swings, memory loss, and therefore bringing back brain fog. Cortisol is then produced from the adrenal gland, and it can affect the way your body pulls glucose from fat from your body tissues into the bloodstream for energy. This is one reason why appetite does diminish during acute stress. Cortisol plays a massive part in this. Furthermore, the heart has physical responses to stress. Blood vessels constrict during the stress response, which makes it harder for the heart to pump blood. Along with other responses such as cortisol production, it can lead to an overproduction in low-density lipoproteins, which can contribute to plaque buildup and then therefore give you a poor heart health. Moving on, we've then talked about the next tired but wired theory. So the tired but wired theory explains why you feel the way you do when you're stressed. So upon detecting a threat, the hypothalamus signals the adrenal medulla to secrete two hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline, into the bloodstream. These increase the heart rate and blood pressure. Blood is pumped to the extremities and then the muscles to help you run or go into battle, whilst gastrointestinal activity is reduced, produce the feeling of butterflies in the stomach. When this complex process is repeated routinely with no time for recuperation, you start to feel both lethargic and wound up. Therefore, the tired but wired theory. This in itself is massive justification that change needs to happen to help you feel better when you're stressed. So, when you're feeling drained, tired and overworked, what is the last thing that you'd want to do when you're stressed? For me and thousands of others, the answer is exercise. Whether that's heading into the gym or going for a run outside, you just don't want to do it when you feel like you want to get into bed and curl up in a ball. Your first thought is not going to be whether you're meeting the current government guidelines, and this, for me, is where the problem lies. Poor diet and a lack of physical activity can only exacerbate the issues raised above, which just screams out for further health problems. The literature suggests that there is a strong correlation between changes in physical activity levels and change in a person's mental health. The more physical activity a person completed at baseline level, the more likely they were to have lower mental health levels. Therefore, it is important that anyone who experiences stress maintains their physical activity levels as much as possible. So to find the answer to the problem, I first explored what previously had been done and whether this worked. Could I critique it? Could I steal some ideas myself and help out in our intervention? So I looked at a study that examined the past 10 years of studies for people aged between 11 and 21. 8 out of the 11 studies looked at included finding that there was a positive association or effect on reducing stress and anxiety levels. The exercise in sessions that were found most effective were high intensity exercise, flexibility within adolescent men and running. There were also greater rates of stress reduction in sessions that were vigorous compared to those that were moderate. Another study completed found that steady home-based walking can help with reducing stress and stress-related behaviours. The study also found that exercises that allowed a sense of mastery, which allowed participants to feel accomplished and pleased with themselves. Another study examined the psychological well-being of 147 participants and split into a control group, flexibility, moderate or high-intensity physical activity groups. Results found that the high-intensity physical activity group subjects undergoing this exercise found significantly less stress after the intervention than the subjects in the remaining 3 groups. The relationship between stress, anxiety and depression for the high-intensity group was reported significantly lower. However, for the remaining 3 groups there was no benefit shown at all. So, as mentioned above, physical activity and nutrition is really vital to take into account when you are stressed. Physical activity can be invaluable when looking to reduce stress, and from the studies and literature mentioned, it can sometimes be out of the person's control that their diet isn't what it should be, due to the complete loss of appetite and sometimes even binging patterns. When looking at what the literature suggested above, it's time for me personally to wave my magic wand and decide what is the answer to this ever-growing problem. So the aim of my intervention is to find out if after 12 weeks of physical activity, if stress and stress-related symptoms declined and did not increase after the intervention was completed. Further objectives of the study would be to find out if adults continued with the behaviours taught during the interventions and using questionnaires and interviews to find out if the tools that were given to help reduce stress worked and whether they are still being used after the intervention is complete. So where will we find these participants? Participants will be referred from GPs, and adverts and posters will be sent around to large businesses and universities to recruit those who may be interested. A planning group of university tutors and deans will also aim to be included and consulted, as students who are happy and healthy are less likely to take time off work and university and improve their academic performance, and this is proved in the literature. It is really important to have these universities on board to help promote this as much as possible and join lectures and seminars giving students regular breaks or active tasks so they are moving around, getting in light cardiovascular work to ensure they are promoting a healthy, active lifestyle. I propose a mixed method intervention that is designed to last 12 weeks and will run over the university semester. It will follow with meetings every 4 weeks after that. The exercises will be varied and will include yoga, stretching and toning sessions and general walking challenges, as well as high intensity sessions such as boxing and HIIT training. The participants will be given an accelerometer to measure the steps that they complete to ensure they are being active enough each day. The target for everyone will be set at around 10,000 steps to ensure participants are hitting the daily target, as well as walking around to promote brain function while sedentary at university or work. These prompts, if people aren't being active, will be sent by text message or app to the person's mobile to instruct them to get up and move about. The exercise sessions will take place 3 times a week, with each session addressing a different type of exercise. Participants will be required to attend at least 1 session a week to ensure that participants are fully engaged with the programme, and they'll be sent reminders through an app and can book on any time. This helps us track who is getting involved in each session and who may need a little bit more of a push. Furthermore, nutritional handouts and helpful meal guides will be sent out via an app that will focus on healthy, nutritious meals for either singles, couples or families. That will be quick, easy and tasty to make on a weeknight. Supermarket vouchers will also be provided to help those who may not necessarily be able to afford all the ingredients in the pack. The positive to using the technology means that we can see if people are clicking on to view the recipes. They can also rate the recipes out of 5 stars and leave instant feedback so the project manager can see what they think of the intervention. This helps us as implementers to see if the intervention's working, see if we can evaluate it throughout and make any changes. And for me, using an app during the intervention is what puts it out from all these other interventions that happened. It means that we can track personally what's going on without feeling like they're being watched. So firstly, we'll measure the volume of steps taken each day. time of completion and making sure that people are moving around as much as possible each hour. We'll complete the intervention and then find out using questionnaires, and we'll follow up with each participant every 4 weeks to see how they're getting on, and we can change their programme there if needed. The intervention will be evaluated throughout with feedback forms filled in after each session and face-to-face catch-ups. From this we can see whether the intervention is successful and if we need to make any changes. The main way we'll monitor intervention is to find out whether it's successful or not, is to look at the grade percentage at the end to see if those who completed university in the intervention got higher grades than those who did not. So if this works with the universities here in West Yorkshire, it'll be the plan to extend it to all universities across the UK to raise grades to help students feel more confident in the degree and make sure that they engage 100% and feel good with what they've learned.